Welcome to the Small Scape. Today we are talking algae, and I've got, if you're familiar with the two tanks that I've got in the kitchen, I've got two 3.5 gallons side by side, and I just changed out the light a few weeks ago, and it's getting more regular light. It started getting some algae, so I reduced the number of hours that it's getting every day, and it still has ever increasing algae in one tank, not the other. Only in one. Well, the one has a little bit of algae, but it's slightly different. Now, I'm curious as to why. I've got some ideas, and I'm wondering if you do as well. So once you start thinking of your ideas, let me know. But, and also a funny thing is that there's a plant in there that's doing surprisingly well with more light. Who knew? Let's go upstairs. Now there's a few questions I want you to keep in the back of your mind as we tour around these two little tanks. And first one is, what can happen when you change the light on a tank? And then, oh, there's Spot. It's one of my little favorites. He's a little dwarf rasbora. And there's a little chili rasbora. And he's thinking we don't see him. Yep, we see you. Okay, and then some pumpkin shrimp in here. The other question is, why are the algae different amounts in each tank? And then also they're actually kind of a different type, and you'll see that in a little while. And then also what plants are doing surprisingly better with higher light. But here's a little overview. The tank on the left has crypts, and then this tank that has the most algae has buse, anubias, and a little bit of S. repens. Now the anubias is doing, it's doing kind of fair. It is towards the top with the higher, this is by no means high light though that I'm giving it, so it shouldn't struggle for that. You'll see some of the leaves look a little kind of worn out, but when I got it, I got as tissue culture, and they were just looking kind of sad. But the buse right here, first surprise, is doing very well. It's putting out a lot of little babies, and it's very happy with the higher light. Who knew? The S. repens is doing fine, I guess. I haven't kept it a whole lot before. I think I've had it in a couple other tanks. It seems to be doing okay, and I know it does need a little bit more light, so that's why I can't just kill the light. But towards, like right in the middle of this tank, in that little valley, that's where I have the most algae, including a little buse that's kind of floating up in the air because of all this green hair algae. The algae is very happy in this tank. But now the funny thing about this long, stringy green hair algae is, see that little, I guess it's a spore, I don't know, that's on the glass, and I'm going to show you how it's somewhat easy to get it off of glass, because when you can see it, it's like little fingers, and it's like glue. It attaches itself, so once you pull it off, it's fine. The whole like bunch of strings come along, but obviously it's everywhere, and it's really hard to pull off of driftwood. That's why I like a little brush. I like to use toothbrushes sometimes too, but spoiler alert, you are going to see these tanks after this video. You're not going to see them for quite some time, because I'm going to be doing like a time lapse of different algae solutions tried on this same tank to see which one works the best. It'll be fun. But I want to give you lots of close-ups of what it looks like now. And then here's another funny thing I did not know, and I'm going to be switching between like the backs of the tanks and the fronts of the tanks. This is the back of the tank that looks better, along with crypts. Surprise, surprise, I forgot that there's corkscrew valve in here. And corkscrew valve has in this tank gotten much taller. It's staying in check, probably because it's competing with algae that wants to show up. So between the crypt and the corkscrew valve, those are faster growing plants that are using up more of the nutrients. So that would be the first thing that I would automatically go to and say, well, there's going to be less algae in here because of the faster growing plants, because anubias and buse in the other tank are very slow growing. But the algae is totally different in there. It comes up kind of like cotton, comes up much easier than this, where this is just literally attaching to everything. It's everywhere. So that's the second thing that I kind of am curious about, is the more hardscaping that you have, rocks, driftwood, is that going to cause you more possible issues or a harder time getting it out of there, because it has more like surface area to attach to, because I've pulled out algae from the other tank that attached to literally the sand and the gravel. Well, it's really easy to pull out. You just pull out some of the sand that it's attached to and it's gone. You can't really pull out your hardscaping unless, of course, you want to ruin your scape. But this, it just seems to, in the tank with the less amount in here, it just seems to come off easier, and it just sticks like glue in this one. But the Anubias, I think, is still doing fine. The light isn't too much for it. It's just kind of bouncing back from the condition that I bought it in. The other thing I'm thinking of is whenever there's roots, like buse, a lot of these little tiny buse and Anubias, I didn't attach, I didn't glue, I didn't really wedge very well in between driftwood or anything. So they're just kind of open in the open air. And apparently algae really likes that. Green hair algae really likes to wrap itself and attach itself to roots. But you can tell the total opposite nature between these two tanks. Filled with algae and the other one not filled with algae. This is the light that I put on. It's not a highlight, like I said, it's average, and it extends the full length. It does very well. I've already reduced the number of hours from, I want to say 9 to 7 maybe per day. The buse, the wavy green buse in this tank here, love it. It's doing very well. I've had it for years now, and it's just happy. But any of the little buse that kind of pops up and starts floating around, it is like a magnet for green hair algae. Now the other thing that I'm thinking is that in this tank there are a whole lot more pumpkin shrimp to kind of work the field than there are in the other tank. The blue dreams in the other tank, I think I only have like 3. That's it. The fish are about the same, maybe 4 or 5 chilies and dwarf raspberries in the one tank versus these guys in here, the Heterangia formosa, which are mostly very, very tiny. So fish, really not contributing a whole lot of waste or activity in here. But it's very interesting to see tanks that you would look at kind of at the outside. It would look like, they're pretty similarly stocked. They should act the same. Not really. Not when you get down to exactly the specific plants in here, the specific hardscaping, how much hardscaping is in here. I find it really quite fascinating. And I don't know if you're the same, but I have to see something with my own eyes in order to really appreciate it. So look for not seeing these tanks for quite some time until I hopefully have a really good video for you at some point in the next month or 2. And hopefully we'll show these 2 tanks with no algae whatsoever. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.